Dear student, Assalamu alaikum. Hope all of you doing well in labor economics. Today we are going to explore minimum wage laws. So learning outcomes after watching this video, you will be able to understand what is minimum wage and what are minimum wage laws. So history of the minimum wage. The minimum wage laws were usually very tightly focused. In the US and the Great Britain, for example, they applied only to women and children. Only after the Great Depression did many industrialized economies extend them to the general workforce. Even then, the laws were often specific to the certain industries. In France, for example, they were extension of existing trade union legislation. In the US, the industry-specific wage restrictions were held to be unconstitutional. The country's Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938 established a union national minimum wage for the non-farm. Non-supervisory workers coverage was later extended to most of the labor force. So, minimum wage. A minimum wage is the lowest remuneration that employers can legally pay their workers, the price floor below which the workers may not sell their labor. Most countries had introduced the minimum wage legislation by the end of 20th century. Minimum wage laws. Minimum wage law is the body of law which prohibits the employers from hiring employees or workers for less than a given hourly, daily or monthly minimum wage. More than 90% of all countries have some kind of minimum wage legislation. So what is the minimum wage in Pakistan in 2019? Setting the minimum wage in 2019-20 budget, the Federation government and the provisional governments of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Balochistan have raised the minimum wage for unskilled worker from 15,000 rupees to 17,500 rupees a month. The government of Sindh has raised the minimum wage from rupees 16,200 to 17,000 a month. What is the US minimum wage in 2020? Effective January 1, 2020, the minimum wage increased to $10 and will increase to 11 in 2021. Minimum wage increased to $13 for the business with the 26 employees or more, $12 for business with the 25 employees or fewer, effective on January 1, 2020, and increased to $15 by 2022. Advantages to the minimum wage. Most supporters of the minimum wage are worker advocates. They list the 5 advantages to the minimum wage. First, workers who can cover the cost of living have better morale. They are more productive if they have decent standards of living. Second, it reduces the income inequality while providing the incentive to work. The incentive makes it better for society than welfare or a universal basic income. Third, a minimum wage supports the economic growth. It gives workers more money to spend. This increases the demand and business revenue. Fourth, workers who have more time and money can then invest in their education. This further increases their productivity. It improves the attractiveness of the country's labor pool. A more educated workforce increases the innovation and the number of small businesses. Last and fifth, minimum wage laws benefit individual businesses. Workers are less likely to leave to find a higher paying job. This reduces the turnover, and expensive retraining cost. Now we discuss the disadvantages of the minimum wage laws. Most of those who oppose the rising the minimum wage are businesses and conservatives. They list the 6 disadvantages. First, the minimum wage is an unfunded mandate that falls on business shoulders. The 1996 minimum wage law is increased cost by the 4 million per state on average. Second, the minimum wage laws raise the business labor cost. That's already the largest budget item for the most of them. When the government forces them to pay more per worker, they hire fewer workers to keep the total labor cost the same. This increases the unemployment rate. It hits the low wage workers the hardest since they must now compete for fewer jobs. Some smaller companies may not be able to operate with the fewer workers. They may be forced to declare bankruptcy instead. Third, the minimum wage penalizes the companies that are the labor intensive. By default, this rewards those that are in capital intensive industries. Over time, this can shift the very fabric of the country's economic base. Fourth, the minimum wage laws may increase the job outsourcing. Companies move their facilities to the countries where the labor costs are lower. Fifth, the minimum wage laws may not reduce the country's poverty. It helps the workers who have jobs but increase the unemployment. Research shows the experienced workers receive the higher pay although the less experienced workers lost their jobs. This was according to the study of the Seattle minimum wage increase by the National Bureau of Economic Research. As a result, more people may be forced onto welfare. Sixth, it could raise the cost of the living in some areas. A higher minimum wage allows the workers to pay more for housing. As a result, the landlords could raise rent, creating inflation. Conclusion. Some research shows that a minimum wage can increase the number of jobs in the country. Businesses find other ways to offset higher labor cost. They raise the prices or reduce the number of hours worked. Worker moral productivity and the consumer spending all increases. But the pros only outweigh the cons of if the minimum wage isn't too high. Wages cannot be so high that they reduce a company's ability to keep labor costs low during recession. In setting a minimum wage, the government has to find the sweet spot between protecting the workers and giving businesses the flexibility they need to remain competitive. Thank you.